A woman had a terrible accident. She and her boyfriend were lying on the shore of the sea. The woman's name was Jen. Her boat had suddenly capsized in the ocean, and she was swept away, unconscious, to an unknown island. When she regained consciousness, she looked around. Then she suddenly remembered her boyfriend was with her. He was lying nearby. His name was Brad. She felt relieved that she wasn't alone on the island. She ran over to him, but when she got closer, her breath caught in her throat. Brad was lying there severely injured. A sharp piece of something was embedded in his stomach. Jen's mind went blank. She had no idea what to do. She started screaming for help, hoping that maybe someone was there who could hear her. But there was only silence, no sound from anywhere. Gathering her courage, Jen searched Brad's jacket. Luckily, she found a flare gun inside. She pulled him up to a safer spot near the shore. Still unsure what to do, she carefully pulled the object from his stomach and wrapped his wound with her shirt. Brad barely regained consciousness. In a trembling voice, he uttered just one sentence. "Did you see it?" Jen was confused. She didn't understand what Brad was talking about. She thought maybe he was thirsty. She ran toward the jungle, and by some stroke of luck, she found a coconut. It took her some time to make a hole in it. She came back and tried to give him some water, but as she looked at him, the coconut slipped from her hand. Brad was no more. Tears filled her eyes. Her only companion was gone. She was now completely alone on this island, but she had to survive. So she started walking toward the far side of the deserted island, hoping to find someone. She walked along the beach, but somehow ended up back at the same spot she started from. It felt as if the island was pulling her back. Disheartened, she went into the jungle again. There, she noticed some old items, things that looked like they had been carefully kept by someone. Jen began to think that maybe someone had been here. She shouted for help once more, but as always, there was no answer. She looked inside a bag she found there. It had some supplies, medicines, and bottles of drinks. Nearby, under some leaves, she also found a small box, some matches, and a few toys. Suddenly, she heard a strange, eerie noise from the other side. Nervously, she moved in the direction of the sound, determined to find out where it was coming from. Finally, she reached a hollow tree, from which the sound had been echoing. It looked like it had been there for years. Jen bravely peeked inside the tree. Suddenly, a bird flew out from it. Startled for a moment, Jen realized it was just a bird. She returned and covered Brad's body with leaves. She was now completely alone on this island. Evening had fallen. Her biggest concern now was to find a safe place to spend the night. Suddenly, it started raining. Jen used some cloth from the boat to cover herself, but before that, she had placed a few containers outside to collect rainwater. She was exhausted, completely soaked and drained. That night somehow passed. The next morning, when Jen woke up, she walked over to the shore, and what she saw shocked her. There were dozens of dead fish washed up on the beach. Jen began gathering them in a bag, but then she suddenly saw a huge dead shark. The shark's body had deep wounds. It looked like it had been viciously attacked by some dangerous creature. Jen gathered all the fish into her bag, hoping it would be enough food for the next day. As she moved around, she spotted another bag nearby. Inside it, she found an old notebook, but because it had gotten wet, the pages were ruined. The writing had faded completely. But inside the notebook, she found something special, a photograph. In the photo, a smiling couple stood together. Seeing it brought a sudden wave of sadness over Jen. Still, she knew she had to find a way off this island. She continued exploring. Soon, she came across something that reignited her fear. Branches and shallow pits arranged in a way that seemed deliberate. In the middle was a cross made of sticks. Jen examined the area carefully. Slowly, it began to seem clear. This was someone's grave. Someone else who had once been stranded here. The thought struck her she should bury Brad too. She dug a hole in the sand nearby and gently placed Brad's body in it. Then, she covered it with leaves and dirt. On a wooden stick, she carved his name and placed it as a marker so she would never forget where he lay. That night, Jen returned to her shelter. She hung up some torn fabric for protection and limb match. She sat down and began to cook some fish. She was so exhausted that she quickly fell asleep. But in the middle of the night, a strange sound woke her up. Jen sat up immediately. She looked around but didn't see anything. She thought maybe it was just the fire crackling, and she lay back down to sleep. The next morning, when she went to check Brad's grave, her heart sank. His body was gone. Blood was splattered all around. Jen instantly realized she was not alone. Something else was on this island. Something dangerous. She needed a weapon fast. She took a tree branch and, using a rock, sharpened it into a spear. That evening, she brought some more wood for sitting and prepared her dinner. Jin was so worn out that she quickly fell asleep again. But in the dead of night, a sound woke her. She sprang up and reached for her makeshift weapon. She looked around, but again saw nothing. She lay back down. In the morning, she noticed something floating in the water. She walked into the ocean to retrieve it. Before grabbing it, she dove under the water and saw something strange. There was a hole beneath the surface, like the entrance to a creature's den. Jin didn't want to take any more risks. She grabbed the floating item and returned to shore. It was a suitcase. Inside, she found clothes, lots of them. She picked out what she needed. That night, Jin went back to the old box she had found earlier. She discovered more photographs inside. Suddenly, she heard the sound of an airplane overhead. Jin sprinted to the shore and fired the flare gun into the sky. But the pilot didn't see it. The flare fell back into the ocean. As it hit the water, Jin saw a horrifying shape, a dark, monstrous shadow beneath the waves. She froze in fear. She realized this was no ordinary creature. This was something evil. Trembling, she grabbed her spear and ran into the jungle to hide. But the creature had seen her. It came searching along the beach, sniffing her trail. Jin hid in thick bushes, holding her breath. The creature came closer, searching, but didn't find her. Jin had hidden herself so well that she was completely invisible from the outside. When the creature finally left, Jin breathed a sigh of relief. The next morning, when she returned to her camp, she was devastated to see it had been completely destroyed. She sat among the broken remains, picking up the old photographs, looking at them closely. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw the creature, the demon, was actually in one of the pictures. Now she knew. If she wanted to survive, she had to escape. She gathered what supplies she could and tried to float out into the ocean using a suitcase as a makeshift raft. But the suitcase couldn't handle her weight. Furious, Jin threw it away as hard as she could. With no other option left, Jin crawled inside the same old hollow tree she had found earlier. That night, she planned to sleep inside it. In the silence of the night, she again heard the creature's terrifying growl. It had figured out she was hiding in the tree. It slammed against the hollow trunk, but Jin stayed completely silent and still. She managed to avoid detection. Eventually, the creature got bored and returned to the ocean. From then on, Jin worked during the day and returned to sleep in the hollow tree at night. She had become skilled at catching fish. One day while fishing, she managed to catch a small shark after a lot of effort. She hung it from a tree and went back to hide. But that night, she saw the creature come and devour the shark. Days passed. Then one day, Jin spotted a body washed up on the shore. She ran toward it and realized the creature had killed this person too. She quickly hung the body in a tree, hoping the demon would focus on that and not come after her. Time dragged on. One night, as Jin tried to fall asleep, she heard the sound of a plane flying overhead. She thought about firing the flare gun to signal it, but before she could act, the demon arrived again. Jin's heartbeat skyrocketed. She stayed hidden inside the hollow tree. The plane's sound faded away into the distance, and the creature also retreated back to the sea. The next day, determined to survive, Jin built a swing-like shelter and hung it high up in a tree. She spent the night inside it, but that night was unlike any other. The demon returned, and this time it saw her. Jin had no choice. The creature began violently shaking the swing. Jin tried to hold on, but eventually she fell to the ground. She got up and ran. The creature chased after her. She dove into the water and swam as fast as she could. Still running, Jin turned and stabbed the demon with her spear. But the demon knocked her down. It attacked again, throwing her back into the water. Jin started to believe this was the end. She was going to die. But just as the demon was about to strike, boom, a loud clap of thunder filled the sky. Startled, the creature turned and ran. Jin knew she didn't have much time. She ran and climbed a tree, deciding to spend the night up there. It started to rain. She was cold and tired, but she had no other choice. The next morning, she checked her legs. They were badly injured. Jin cleaned her wounds and wrapped them with cloth. Then she looked out at the ocean and spotted a boat. Without wasting a second, she jumped into the water and swam toward it. Inside the boat were two people, her boyfriend, Lux, and Brad's girlfriend, Nia. Jin helped both of them to the shore. She and Lux immediately embraced each other, expressing their grief and emotions. Jin then shared some fish and a few drinks with them. Jin warned them about the creature. She told them, "We need to get off this island as soon as possible." But Lux and Nia didn't believe her. They thought Jin had just gotten scared from being alone for too long. A little later, Jin started preparing food and asked Lux for his knife. As she was cutting the food, she noticed bloodstains on the knife. Something fell off. She again Jin insisted that the three of them needed to leave the island immediately, but the two started arguing. Lux raised his voice. Jin now realized Lux wasn't going to listen to her, so she quietly made up her mind to leave on her own. She packed her things, placed them on the cloth-covered raft, and started to push it into the ocean. Just then, Lux and Nia spotted her and tried to stop her. A fierce struggle broke out between the three of them. In the heat of the moment, Jin accidentally kicked Nia in the face. Furious, Nia struck Jin with an oar, knocking her unconscious. When Jin regained consciousness, it was midnight. She found herself tied to a tree. She begged Lux and Nia to untie her, but they refused. Angry, Nia walked away toward the other side of the island. Lux, still upset, began listing Jin's past mistakes. He reminded her how their friendship had been filled with tension and that she had once threatened to break up with him. Jin, knowing the island's dangers, tried to reason with Lux. This isn't the time for this, she pleaded. The creature could come any moment, but Lux believed she was just trying to manipulate him. Meanwhile, Nia was walking along the shoreline when suddenly she vanished. Lux and Jin heard her scream. Panicked, Lux grabbed a torch and ran toward her. What he saw shocked him. The demon had attacked Nia. Lux tried to save her, but he was no match for the monster. The creature dragged Nia into the ocean. Meanwhile, Jin had managed to free herself from the ropes, but it was too late. The demon had already pulled Nia deep into the sea. The next morning, Lux finally agreed with Jin. They needed to leave. They caught some fish and cooked them over a fire to take along for the journey. They packed all their supplies into the cloth-covered raft and set out into the ocean. While inside the raft, Jin noticed bloodstains again. Just then, Lux looked into the water and saw the creature swimming below. Suddenly, the monster lunged and struck at Lux with its claws. He barely managed to pull himself inside the raft and seal the opening shut, but the demon kept attacking the raft from the outside. Eventually, its claws tore a hole in the raft. Its face forced its way in. Jin kicked it as hard as she could. Lux fired the flare gun at the creature. The first shot missed, but the second shot hit the creature directly in the mouth. That was their chance. Together, they shoved the monster back into the ocean. Both Jin and Lux thought the creature was finally dead, but suddenly, the demon returned. This time, Jin was the one caught in its grasp. It began dragging her deep underwater, pulling her toward its underwater cave. Jin struggled with all her strength to break free. Then she remembered Lux's dagger. She quickly pulled it out and stabbed the creature. The demon was wounded, and Jin managed to free herself. Just then, Lux dove into the water to save her. But the creature turned toward Lux and grabbed him, dragging him into its cave. Jin was devastated. She returned to the shore and saw that the fire she had lit earlier still had a few glowing embers. To protect herself from the monster, Jin rekindled the fire. As the flames grew, she opened her diary and began to write. She documented everything that had happened on the island, hoping that if she didn't survive, anyone who came after her could read it and protect themselves. Then a plan formed in her mind. Jin started crafting multiple spears. She dug a pit in the sand. While digging, she uncovered a skeleton. It was there that she set a trap. As night fell, Jin waited for the demon to come. Soon, she saw the creature emerge, following the scent of fish. To lure it in, Jin had lit small fires in several places. When the demon reached the center of the trap, Jin lit a circle of fire around it, trapping it. She picked up a spear and launched a powerful strike. As soon as she struck, she hid behind a tree. The creature hadn't seen her yet. When it turned around, Jin struck again. But this time, the creature slammed her to the ground. Still, Jin didn't give up. She got back up and attacked once more. This time her strike landed deep. She knew it was her moment. She continued attacking, but the demon wasn't dead yet. Then Jin realized she knew exactly where to strike. She grabbed a sharp bone and stabbed the creature right in the same wound she had inflicted earlier. Finally, the creature let go. Seeing her chance, Jin struck again and again, until the demon was finally dead. Without wasting a second, she grabbed her raft and set out to sea. The jungle behind her had caught fire. Jin understood there was nothing left for her on that island. After a long and brutal struggle, Jin had finally found a new chance at life. She was heading home, and with that, the movie comes to an end.